Hey, Women of Hope, welcome to the Summer Conversations series today. I'm going to get to my conversation with Christina Davis in just a minute, and you're going to love it. Christina is awesome. But I don't know if you know this or not. I taught myself how to edit videos in order to be able to bring this Summer Conversations series to you all. And this has been a huge stretch for me. I am not very good at it. I don't pretend to be very good at it, but I've learned the basics with YouTube's help to be able to do these. So here's what happened. I was editing this video with Christina. I kind of messed it up beyond repair at the beginning, and I decided rather than start all over, I was just going to record this apology and splice these two things together because that's just how it's going this morning. And so you are about to join in this conversation that Christina and I have been in for a couple of minutes. So let me just tell you, Christina and I met several years ago, probably about 13 years ago, when she was a volunteer in children's ministry, and when I was leading the 3-year-old through kindergarten. It was called then KQ, Kingdom Quest. It was our Sunday school program before it was Hope Kids. I was leading the 3-year-olds through kindergartners, and she was a volunteer along with her husband, Michael, and they brought some friends with them to volunteer as well. Anyway, so I have known Christina since then, and she is just amazing. She's just a woman who you want to get to know. She's going to stretch you. She's going to challenge you. She's going to make you think about things a little bit differently. And I'm just excited for you to hear this conversation. So I apologize for my poor editing. I apologize for just a myriad of things. But keep in mind that I am learning how to, I'm managing to take these two videos and put them together, and I put music underneath of it. And so really, I'm kind of feeling like a champion, even though I'm not. Anyway, I'm so glad that you have been watching these videos. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Christina. Check out the show notes down below for information on all of the things that we talk about. I don't even want to give away any surprises right now. So check the show notes and yeah, let us know how you like the video. Have a great week, a great day. So glad you're here. Bye. The purpose of all of this really is just to be like, no, seriously, you can do things that feel scary, and you can do things that sound hard, and you can step forward when you don't know what step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 look like.
Yeah. And I think too, you can step forward in a way that matters, even if other people don't understand that it matters.
Oh, that's so good.
In my work with women, with really clothing their outside, right? It can seem a little bit superficial and it shouldn't matter. But when I see how feeling better about this, what God made, the impact that has on the inside, it just continues to matter, and then my little people, my children, watching other women be here and feel good about themselves and have a different level of confidence and be able to express themselves in a certain way is really cool.
Yeah, so it is. Yep, it really is. And so, yeah, so then when I saw your comment on Facebook, you had just been talking about what I loved about it, and we'll get into this more later. But you have always been someone who I have just kind of you've just always been somebody who's just like, here I am, you know what I mean? And, take it or leave it. Honestly, I don't really care, but I'm not going to try and fit into your mold because I just can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like as an adult, right? As a more mature person, I've been retrospective about this and realized I've really been that way my whole life, but I did spend a period of time trying to fit into someone else's box. Are you familiar at all with Enneagram?
Yeah.
I'm a 4.
Okay.
Exactly.
So tell me more about what that means. Tell me more about the 4s. I can't.
A 4 is an individualist.
Okay.
And so essentially, and I'm a wing 3, so we can sort of over.
Yes.
And so a 3 is an achiever. And I really did live out of that 3 space for a long time. I was in banking. I wanted to win awards. I was doing just the typical striving, and always was a little swimming upstream. The only person at the sales conference in a red suit in a sea of navy blue and black, and just all the stuff that I remember. or even the way that I did my work felt different than the way other people did it. And so it is essentially someone who not only is willing to stand out, but really likes it. And so when I think about the hobbies I've chosen and what I've done with my career, it makes sense. But the reason for that is not standing out for the sake of standing out. It's because it's my desire to leave a legacy.
Mm.
And so then when you think about this do it afraid mantra and the way that I'm raising my children, it's all like, oh, like light came down from above and went, you make sense. Like, yes, this is exactly what you were created to be, intended to be. And it is just who you are. It's not, but I also think it's really, I mean, I'm an extrovert. It is true. It's kind of like part of me goes, I'm just going to do my thing and you may or may not like it, but I do get hurt too. Like in the end, we do want people to like us. And
Yes.
so there's a little bit of struggle with that because when you do stand out, some people get you and some people don't.
Yes, 100% yes.
A little bit of a swirl.
Yeah, no, but I totally feel that. I went to a Baptist seminary and I knew that half the men sitting in that room didn't think that I should be there, right? It's not, for the sake of it, but that was where I needed to be, because I had that background myself and I needed to be able to articulate why I did have every legitimate call from God to be in that room.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
I love it. But you mentioned something that when you first got here, you worked in or you volunteered in children's ministry, but you moved here from Atlanta. Is that where you are from?
No, from Virginia Beach, and went to college in Virginia Beach and then moved to Atlanta for Wells Fargo, which is a little bitty bank a lot of people have heard of.
Maybe.
And then actually Wells Fargo is the reason that my husband and I ended up relocating to Des Moines.
Yeah. Yep. I remember that. I remember one time you said you were at Wells Fargo, you loved your job at Wells Fargo, and you said, and when you work for Wells Fargo, eventually all roads lead to Des Moines.
Exactly. That's so true. Yeah. That is so true. It's the mothership for a lot of parts of the organization anyway.
So you mentioned that you worked for Wells Fargo. We talked about that for a little bit. And is that still what, I think we've already kind of alluded to it, that you don't do that anymore?
No, I was there 15 years. And the best way I know to describe it is I just woke up one day and thought, this has been a good ride, but it doesn't feel like who I am. It doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to contribute to the world. And I think what I discovered is this world of small business and ultimately this world of entrepreneurship. So I left Wells and originally went from a company of a couple 100,000 to a company of about somewhere between 8 and 12, depending people. And I remember sitting in a staff meeting right at the beginning of my tenure there and saying, I have a thought or I have an idea. And someone looked at me and said, oh, you should go do that. And I thought, wait, no project plan, no dashboard, no, assessment, viability. And I came home and I said to Michael, this is liberating. And again, huge respect for Wells Fargo as an organization. Tons of friends that still work there, had a really nice career there. But again, individualist, a little like, I don't know, something is not the same as the others. It's kind of how I always felt. And so I discovered that where my passion really is for small business. And so then I did that for a number of years, taught public speaking, taught sales training, traveled a ton, usually home on the weekends, which is why I was able to volunteer. And then ultimately, after we had our children, discovered that I really was ready for even the next thing. And those are some of the things that you're familiar with, what I do now.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you are doing now?
So now I do a number of things, and they seem somewhat disconnected to some people, but then once you sort of peel back a layer or two, you realize they're all very much connected. But I own a small business, a consulting company called Outside In Consulting, and I deal almost exclusively with very small businesses or individuals. And I work in the space of personal brand or business brand, this idea that we draw others to us based on how we express ourselves, and just giving people permission, I've been told, to be who they are. And so it's anything from personal style, wardrobe consulting, closet audits, literally what people would think of as a style consultant or a personal stylist. But then I've secret shopped small businesses. When someone comes in, what is that experience? Is it who we are? How well are we reflecting to others who we are as an organization or who we are as a person? And then, of course, as a vehicle to do that work, I also sell or represent a line of women's clothing. Mm-hmm. It's called Cabby, if any of you have not heard of it. And then I've got some pet projects on the side, which is one of the things I think that ultimately triggered this conversation to happen.
Sure. And you have done work with a mutual friend of ours, Alicia Economos, and most of the women who are hearing this have probably know of Alicia. She did our spring brunch, such as it was. We were able to get together and have a conversation, and I know you guys kind of worked together.
We did.
Yeah.
And on a lot of layers. Again, a period of rediscovery, rebranding for her business. Mm-hmm. She was seeing herself in maybe images on her website and thinking, I'm more creative than that. I'm more fun than that. Help me bring out what that looks like. And so it's interesting, but it can be as simple as a color or an animal print. And then it can also be in the way you articulate a message. And she and I worked together on both. Do you start with, my name is, and here's what I'm here to talk about? Or is there a great story? She has so many stories. And so how to incorporate something a little more real, a little more fun into how she presents or how she communicates to audiences.
Did you start out in that line of work knowing or understanding already that people needed permission to kind of be set free to be who they are, or was that something you discovered along the way?
It's something that I discovered along the way, sort of. So what I know is that I had to give myself permission. I felt like there was a period in my life where I was really trying to be who others expected me to be. And I know that, as I shared that a little bit earlier, you said lots of us go through that, and I would agree. But sometimes you don't have the words to explain that until one of your clients says that to you. So I had a client who she reached out. She said, I think I need to work with you, but I'm not sure. We had a conversation, and she told me later, she's like, I didn't really like a lot of the things you said. Because she said, we were talking and what you were talking about seemed so superficial. My work should speak for itself. I'm smart. Why does it even matter what this package is? And she told me later, I resisted because I felt like I didn't want to invest time and resources into something so superficial. But then later, as we got together, she said, you aren't trying to change me. You're giving me permission to be who I was, to bring back some of the, she's like, I realized I used to do this more. I used to care about this more. I used to express myself in this way. And somewhere along the way that got lost. And so you're giving me permission to actually shine bright into the world the way I am. And I think that's why now I tend to explain that to people that way, because of words people used when they shared their experience.
Absolutely. I'm having two responses to that. One of them is just thinking in the context of like everything that our nation and our world is going through right now. And I have come to realize that when I'm on the cusp of learning something that is true and that is worthwhile, my initial reaction is to push it away. So that's true in any of the ways that we're used to thinking, I think. Our brain doesn't want to have to think about things differently, whether it's anything, exploring how we show up in the world, exploring our internal, just the biases and the ways that we've never challenged ourselves. The brain does not want to be challenged, period. Right?
Absolutely. And I don't know who said it. I'm sure it's someone famous and I'm not giving proper credit. Maybe it was my mom, who should be famous. But a long time ago, someone said to me, growth comes in discomfort. And as I accepted jobs or didn't, or as I made decisions in life or didn't, I have always felt like if it makes me feel a little like I want to throw up, like a little, like maybe it's just over my head, maybe I'm just not quite ready, that those are the things that if we really lean into them, end up creating amazing opportunities, just phenomenal opportunities for growth, personal development, for changing lives around us. I mean, those are the things that ultimately end up mattering the most. And so right now, that might be uncomfortable conversations. It might be uncomfortable realizations. It might be all kinds of, it might be being willing to ask someone a question because you want to engage in a dialogue that's robust and rich and that you potentially could both learn from.
Yes. So how old are your girls? Do you mind sharing?
Not at all. Not at all. As long as you don't then ask me how much older I am than them.
Doesn't matter.
I don't really care, but I was a late bloomer, I always say. My kids are 10 and 6, both girls. Mm-hmm.
And how are they asking questions, or have you always been kind of proactive as a mom in terms of exposing them to different things? Or I think I know the answer to this actually, but
I have been proactive, but not always perfect.
Of course.
And, I don't want to get into too much. I mean, soon we're going to be analyzing me and I'm going to need someone in the Hope family to counsel me. But I grew up abroad. I grew up as the only American in a public school. And I really have, in fact, part of our reluctance as parents to move to Iowa was because we were a little afraid, frankly, that everybody would look like us. Mm-hmm. And so what we've discovered is a robust community if you seek it out.
Sure.
So I would say that we have been proactive in our relationships, in our conversations, I always tell Michael that I get all the hard questions though at bedtime. Like he'll go, "You were up there a long time." I'm like, "I know, get a load of this one." So I don't know how he always dodges those, but I get all the hard questions.
Yes, I as the mom as well. I don't know. I feel like it is my husband's spiritual gift to not be present when the crap really hits the fan,
Right. Whatever it is. And there's been so much. Yeah. I also have one that I can tell when something's on her mind, but she doesn't necessarily say it, or she'll say, "I think I need to talk to you later." And that's Tristan. So she's the child. She's a thinker. And I really find that I need to draw those conversations out because she's not processing maybe incorrect information. The other one, the six-year-old, just tells me what's on her mind all the time, all day. I never have to wonder.
Which is both a blessing and sometimes like, really, really, honey?
Yes. Did you really just say that? Yeah. That's why they're a gift, because they're both so different.
Yes, I love that. Yep. So one of the reasons that I reached out to you was multitudes. When I saw a particular Facebook post that prompted me to reach out to you. But also, as I mentioned earlier, actually before we kind of got into the meat of this, the point behind these conversations that we're having this summer is that each one of us has been created by God to matter in a way that no one else does. And some of those ways that most of the ways that we matter actually have so much to do with our circle, which is actually pretty small for the most part. It's the people that are in our home. It's the people who are there in our neighborhood, our schools, our places of work. But really it has to do with those places that aren't particularly sexy, that aren't particularly flashy. They are just the people that we run into, I shouldn't have even said that, but it's the people that we run into through the course of our day. And I think the way I said it that way because I understand that feels small. And I understand that it doesn't feel like it matters, but it totally, totally does. So one of the things that I'm curious about is you've gone from, having I mean, it just occurs to me, like you've had, several different lives almost in a way.
Yeah. Corporate
Yeah.
executive, working for a really small company, and literally now flying solo. I am in a home filled with entrepreneurship. So the last 90 days have stretched us and pressed us and required some level of faith, a lot. Yeah. So absolutely, I would say different iterations, always still me,
Yeah.
but pretty significant shifts.
Yeah. What I want to kind of get to is I would like to kind of get to, as you have navigated those transitions and just responding to the call that God is saying, I want you to matter over here now, and saying yes to those things and all of that. How did you approach, letting go of one thing and moving into the next thing?
I mean, naturally, I'm a risk taker. So naturally, I think growth comes in discomfort, but also that practical, responsible. So lots of conversations, just even within our home. I happen to have a very supportive husband who basically says a happy mom and a happy wife is the best for this family. And so has really encouraged me to take those leaps, and also just approached it with, when we do what God's called us to do, and I don't want to make this seem simple, but it does end up working out, and it doesn't feel easy, and it isn't, and it requires grit and hard work, but really just approaching it as the most important thing I can do while I'm on this planet is do what I've been gifted to do and do what I've been called to do. And so even if that's hard, it feels good when you wake up every day knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're mattering in the way that, to your point, nobody else does. So I would say my initial reaction is, this sounds fun, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, it's new, let's do it. And then there's a little bit of, hold on, we've got kids, we've got a mortgage, and so some discussion. I remember saying to Tristan, and this is going to sound really funny, but I remember saying to her, okay, so here's the deal. What if the three of us at that time had to either, well, I said, live in a cardboard box, but what I also said was, or go to live with Oma, or live in Heather's basement, or whatever, like kind of paint. And she said, Mom, as long as we're together, I don't care. And so what I realized is that the things sometimes that drive our decision-making are not really as important as we make them out to be. So we've also decided that we would be willing to make other changes, to live in a smaller home, so it's also just sort of recognizing, if this doesn't work out exactly, what is the worst case? What might that look like? What changes are we willing to make? And then just be happy when it's not quite that bad. We've never had to live in a cardboard box.
Right. I love it. What do you say? Because I hear women say all the time, I just don't know, I just don't know if I'm actually hearing God's voice, or I just don't know. I'm sure there's something I'm supposed to be doing, but what if I'm missing it? Do you hear that?
I do hear that. I do hear that. And I think I've personally experienced that. And I think I've heard that in conversations with friends. And I would also say that some people might not be, and they've never been willing to make a shift, but other people just need to assume that, or need to understand, or should understand, they can do the Lord's work wherever. So, I could have continued to be a person of integrity and a person who worked hard within the space I was given at that time. And then when opportunities come to make a change, do it. I think people always assume that doing something that matters is having your name in lights and doing something really big. And you can matter in raising your children or volunteering in the community. I think also we need to have our little circle of people we trust who challenge us and hold us accountable, and then be willing to listen. And the final thing, I think, is when what you're doing feels easy to you but is hard to other people, that's a golden nugget where people say, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that, or I didn't know you could do that, or I didn't think of it that way. And you go, oh, really? Because It totally makes sense to me. Then you can also know that you're contributing in a way that's meaningful, because just because it's a little thing, like people are really, at VBS, people are really gifted at storytelling or helping kids with crafts, and other people just completely lose their patience with little people. So if you can be creative and contribute in that way and it feels hard to other people, then it's a gift, and working within that does matter.
Yeah, absolutely. As an entrepreneur, as a working mom, tell me a little bit about how you have balanced that.
Well, personally, I've also, someone, again, very smart. I'm not crediting these people, but what they said made a huge difference. Someone said to me, work-life balance. I think it was actually a mentor at Wells Fargo, Brenda. And Brenda Orrell goes to Hope, actually. So if she's listening, she's getting credit. But work-life balance happens over a lifetime, not a day. And I think that's been really important for me to remember, because there have been big moments of seeming imbalance. In fact, one of the stories that this little pet project that I think we're going to maybe get to talk about came out of was one of those moments where I'll say to myself, I'm an entrepreneur because I want to be able to spend more time with my children and be more present for my family. And yet today, right now, I'm on the phone all day, or I'm out of the house, or I'm traveling. That doesn't seem like why I did this. And so for me, just realizing, but wait, on a different day, I've been able to go to the reading group at school in the middle of the day. I've been able to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do because I get to manage my own schedule. I get to pick when I'm available and when I'm not. And then, I mean, I have invested in coaches who have helped me unpack that too, who have helped me sort of get a hold on all my activities and what's the most important and how to make sure that I keep first things first. So I have leveraged help. But the most important thing for me to realize has been, one, work-life balance is over a lifetime. And I can look back and say, when it really mattered, when it was the most important, I was there. And that might not be every minute of every day. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's how I think of it.
Yeah, yep. I really appreciate that. I work weekends, I work some nights, and it's the exact same thing that I then have to say, okay, well, and the thing is, I really like working.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that's the other thing too. And so sometimes I have to say, okay, no, I'm not going to do that right now, because there is this thing that I can go and do during the middle of the day, because I have that flexibility, because I'm also on Sunday morning, I'm going to be working, or on Saturday morning, I'm going to be working. So I can go do this thing during the middle of the day now or whatever. So.
And for me too, I've also been able to build my business in a way that my clients know that if I'm on a Zoom call with them and it's summertime, my kids might pop in and say hi. Or if they're here shopping in the boutique, I always tell them, I mean, I leave the door closed and I have girls, so we're more or less safe, but they might come flying in there. And what I've realized is that if people would rather do business with someone where that might not happen, then I'm not the best fit for them, because that's not something that I'm willing to sacrifice. So some of it is a very deliberate decision-making process as well.
Right. Yes, that is 100% true. Yeah. So tell me a little bit then about, we kind of alluded to it when we were talking about the balance with your kiddos, but you have t-shirts. Do you want to stand up so people can see your t-shirt?
Or at least, there you go.
I love it. It says, "Do it afraid."
I'm trying not to be too obvious about my chest taking up the whole frame. This is a church activity.
Again, pretty much all women. If we have men watching, I'm sorry, guys.
This is it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Tell us a story about how this came about.
Yeah. And it actually does have to do with hope, interestingly enough. I'll go back to what I was saying before. I remember a time where Tristan was young, about 4, I think. Maybe even younger, because I don't think Evan was even a twinkle in my eye. And I had literally been on the phone all day long. And Tristan, I remember her sitting on the floor, playing with whatever, coloring Legos. And I remember saying to her many times, not now, in a minute, I'll be right there. And what I had been doing that day is a series of coaching calls. So helping people identify, you know, what's going on and what's holding you back and all of those sorts of conversations. Well, fast forward, the Hope Christmas program, the kids program, comes and goes. And right after the program, this is the first time she's been on that huge stage in front of all of those people. And I said, hey, babe, how'd it go? And she goes, Mom, I looked out and there were so many people and I was super nervous. And then she said to me, and then I did what I heard you tell all those ladies to do, and I did it afraid. And it was in that moment where I thought, you know what? And this is before I knew I was an individualist and before I knew I wanted to leave a legacy, but something just clicked in my mind. And I remember thinking, as a parent, that's what I want. Like, I want children who can acknowledge, uncomfortable, but growth comes in discomfort, a little bit scary, but I can do it. I have confidence, I have grit, and lean into that fear instead of run away from it. And I used to do it afraid because out of respect, I mean, fear keeps us from running out into the street in front of a car. So fear is healthy. Yet I have felt that the message tends to be brave and have courage. And those are things that have merit. But I think this is sort of like being scared and saying I'm scared. Not just be brave, but I'm scared. And this feels in all kinds of ways like something that might not be good. But leaning in and learning that on the other side of that fear, there can be amazing things. And so with my girls, it shows up in all kinds of ways. It certainly shows up in big things like changing your job, but it shows up like saying you're sorry can be really scary, or admitting that you did something you're not supposed to do. You know, it can be, quitting your job, mending a relationship, having a conversation that's hard. I mean, there are so many ways, including for us, a hobby that now we've embraced as a family, where there's a moment where, you know, you're doing the right thing, but it may or may not go exactly like you planned. But it's that fear, that do it afraid element is what bridges your fear combined with trust, right? So I know it's going to be okay. I know this is the right thing, and propels you forward to do it anyway. And so it was Tristan's idea that we not only keep this art to ourselves and within our family, but it was her idea to say, you know, Mom, I would love it if other people heard this message and other people had an opportunity to join the little movement. And so we do t-shirts and we do tote bags and we do leotards for our circus gym. And there's an increasing number of people in this community that are out there wearing what she designed with pride.
I love it. I heard you mention circus gym, and I think people are going to have questions about that. So would you?
And again, now that I know I'm an individualist, I'm an Enneagram 4, my whole life makes sense. Probably even to my husband too. He was probably like, oh yeah, he's coughing in the background if you can't hear him. So about 3 years ago, I had just read Angela Duckworth's book on grit. This is probably more than you wanted, but edit it out if it's too much.
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
And she talks about choosing something that feels uncomfortable. She talks about doing it to the point of mastery. So a couple of years. There's a lot of science to support that a lot of times we quit something before we're ready. And I'm like, oh, what's my one thing going to be? And Michael was probably like, oh, what's her one thing going to be? And into my inbox comes this Groupon. And it says, you know, you can buy a punch card to Iowa Circus Arts for, I don't know, $5. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is my one thing. Now I want you to keep one thing in mind. Never been a gymnast, never been a dancer. Let's just say I'm way taller and lots of things than Amanda, right? Like I am not this sort of, now I've always been active, so relatively fit, but still not sort of your standard stereotype of someone who would do this. And so off I go. So I take a couple classes, fit it in wherever. And then I take Tristan to the first student showcase. And about second act in, she elbows me and says, "Mom, you should totally do this." And I said, probably pretty much like that. And I laughed at her. And well, at first I said, "Wait, but I do it." And she said, no, this, like perform, not this dabbling you're doing, but you need to, I want to see you up there, and I want to be in these seats watching you. And I did. I chuckled. I had a big laugh. And, I'm looking at these people that literally, in some cases, I'm double their age. And then that night, I was challenged with a couple things. One, why can't I? Two, what kind of message does that send? And three, remember, we do it afraid. So totally convicted. And
love it when your own words come back to bite you in the rear end, right?
Yeah. So I go to the owner of the circus arts school, and I say, realistically, this is probably April. Realistically, can I put something together during the fall for the fall showcase, which is October, November timeframe? And he says to me, "Well, it depends on how hard you're willing to work." Well, you don't say that to me, right? Because it's like, it becomes this little, I'll show you. So I did. And then longer story shorter, my girls have now jumped on board. Anybody that is friends with me on Facebook sees pictures of my teeny tiny 6-year-old hanging by her neck. So they're good at it. They're quickly surpassing me. There's something about, only being 35 pounds and super flexible. But anyway, and we have a great time. And I think, again, there are so many times where you're taught a trick and nothing in your mind, like, you don't have to do this. There's nothing you want me to do. What? You want me to let go? Why would I do that? And so I would say to the instructor, "Now, you're sure I'm set up right? Like, you're sure when I let go, I'm actually not going to fall flat on my neck?" We're all, "Yes, Christina. I mean, do you think it's in my best interest for you to die?" Probably not.
I don't know, but just in case.
Right. And you do let go. You do it afraid. You do it anyway. And it is absolutely exhilarating. And I'm a squealer. I don't know if that's weird, but I literally will go, "Oh my God, that was so fun." And I'm shrieking. And so it's just another, again, example in our lives of how doing it afraid makes sense to us, and how we can have that level of trust that somebody's going to be there for us, stretch us, keep us safe.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. I love everything about it.
You could come.
I will think about it.
Okay.
What I love about that is so many times in Christian circles and Christianese, this idea, we have so easily adopted the idea that to be afraid or to have fear means that our faith isn't as strong as it should be, or as strong as Jesus wants it to be. And sometimes we feel like if there's fear that we can identify, well, then we're disappointing God somehow, right? But I love, you mentioned the words, we're told to be brave, we're told to have courage, but in my mind, those words mean do it afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, acknowledge there's something going on in there that you're resisting, and then do the hard thing anyway, because we have been given what we need, a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind to be able to do the thing anyway. And I think so many times when Jesus says over and over, "Be not afraid, be not afraid." But the word that he uses in that, if you really want to get to the meaning of that, it means don't let your fear tell you what to do.
Yes. Yes.
You're going to be afraid, but don't let your fear be the thing that gets to tell you what to do. Let your faith be the thing that tells you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great example of why people like you go to seminary, right? So that you can understand the original intent, the original language, what's lost in translation so many times. But I love that. Don't let fear keep you from your true purpose, and don't let fear keep you from doing things that ultimately could be amazing. I'm kind of at a place now where with all of that circus stuff, where I wonder if the whole reason I went there is so that my kids could discover it for themselves, because it's been amazing for me, but what I've seen with them has been an absolute gift. And I think, you know what? I thought this was about me discovering something I love, but now I'm wondering, if I was just supposed to discover it for them. So time will tell. Maybe one of them will be in circus someday.
Right? Absolutely. Well, it can totally be a both and, right?
Absolutely.
Totally
Yes.
you found it at the right time when you were kind of exploring this. And I can only imagine there are different things that I do that require that I make myself uncomfortable, that I get stronger, that I get better, etc. And all of that influences then the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
And so that probably did that for you. And it also is a way, it introduced your girls to that. I can't think of anything better for our young women, for our young girls, to be able to be proud of what their bodies can do.
Yes. Yes.
I can't think of anything better that we could teach our girls.
Yes. So true. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. So if people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh. I guess it depends.
I was thinking social media world, but if you want to share your address, that's up to
Urbandale. Most days you can find me these days in my house. But on social media, my consulting business is called Outside In Consulting, and my website is www.outsideinconsulting.co. C-O.
Okay.
So a lot of times when I email that to people, they're like, you forgot the M. Nope, I didn't forget the M. It's .co.
Okay.
And from there, you can learn a little bit about what I do for women, for businesses, and also you can shop for all of this really fun Do It Afraid gear. Happy to have all of you continue to help us as a family share that message. And then on social media, Christina Davis, Christina's Cabby Closet, Outside In Consulting. I mean, all the things. On Instagram is the only one that's a little bit weird. It's Christina_Davis 1996, I think. I feel like I should check. I laugh about that one because you don't ever think that your Instagram handle is going to matter until one day it does. And then you're like, that was really dumb.
It's dumb, right? I know.
And if anybody's curious, that's the year I got married, which then paints a picture of how young I am. It's like 96. You were born in 96. Nope, I wasn't.
But to be fair, you also met your husband when you were like 8.
8. Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Christina, thank you so much for all of for chatting today, and I love it. I knew that your story was one that people needed to hear. So thank you.
Oh, and I thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun, and I just think it's neat to get to know other people in our church community and get to know their story a little bit. And I just thank you for asking me.